Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we'll be looking back at 2020's greatest games, or at least the greatest games in my eyes. Keep in mind that I haven't played every single game this year, nor will I try. So if your favorite game isn't on here, then I probably just haven't gotten to it. Also, compilations or ports will not be featured here, so games like 3D All-Stars and Pikmin 3 Deluxe will not be on here. If you like this video, then do me a favor and give it a thumbs up. It really helps. If you really like this video, then subscribe for more content like this. The content I usually upload are like reviews or whatever I'm feeling like that week. With that out of the way, let's get into my top 10 video games of 2020. I have had the least amount of time with Doom Eternal than any other game on the list, so it may not be fair to put it on the list, but I'm doing it anyway. Doom Eternal is not your average first-person shooter. It goes for more of an old-school approach to gameplay, with its minimal storytelling and straight up having you get health and body armor just scattered throughout the levels. This is the most video game a video game can be, and it's pretty great. Doom Eternal adds so much to the gameplay that it's borderline overwhelming. There's so much you can do, so many tools at your disposal. While I enjoy the game so far, I am nowhere near as good as I would like to be. I personally have a hard time clicking with the game, and I'm not sure why. Maybe if I get through more of the game, it'll start to click more, but for now, I'm comfortable putting it at number 10. I have more to say about Sac Boy in my recent review, but to recap, I really enjoyed this game, even more so than I thought I would. It's really fun with others, and I think that's its greatest strength. This game is just so creative in its approach to level design and platforming. Some of my biggest problems with the game was there are some levels that just blend in together. There's a lot of green worlds and levels, which is fine, but I would have liked to see more varied worlds. But other than that, I really enjoyed this game. And if you like platformers, I would give this a shot. Age of Calamity was a nice surprise to have in 2020. While I have problems with the overall story in Age of Calamity, the gameplay can be addicting, and getting new characters and combos never get old, until you run out of said characters and combos. This is a warrior style game, through and through, which means that for most of the game you'll be mowing down enemies and capturing outposts. It is a total power fantasy. However, the gameplay overall can get repetitive, especially after you beat the story. At that point, you're just completing leftover quests. It's this and the technical issues, like the frame drops here and there. And there's a lot of times in the game where you'll have a semi-smooth experience, and then all of a sudden it just slows down. So stuff like that keep this game from being any higher on the list. But I still had a good time, even with its flaws. Paper Mario has gone further and further from its RPG roots over the years, but that doesn't mean the quality has dipped over the years. Origami King brings a familiar battle system with a unique twist. The battles take place in this ring where you can shuffle around the enemies for better attacks. This brings a level of strategy that I never had to do in any other game before, so that's pretty unique, and I love the Origami King for just implementing that battle system. Of course, I would have liked more RPG elements like XP and all that, but it's still fun and engaging. The visuals of this game are superb. This is the best looking Paper Mario game out there, and it's so stunning to visit these worlds in this art style. The music is an amazing part of the game as well. More so than I thought it would be. The music can best be described as this jazzy funk, which is a great combination for a game such as Paper Mario. Overall, this game is great, with great visuals, great music. Yeah, I would have still liked for the gameplay to have more RPG elements, just like back in the old days, but I think one step at a time, they're getting closer to finding not only a familiar place where the Paper Mario series used to be, but also take it to a whole new level. Overall, great game, with great music, great visuals, and honestly, it's worth your time. Last of Us Part 2 is one of those games that the story means more to me than the actual gameplay. This game is the opposite to games like Doom Eternal, in the sense that Doom Eternal focuses more on gameplay than story. Either one of these decisions is not a bad one. Players go for Last of Us for mostly the story, and players go to Doom Eternal for the gameplay, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's an argument, of course, that gameplay should be the highest priority in a game, but I don't know. It really depends on your flavor of games. That's not to say that Last of Us gameplay is bad or anything, because it's not. It's very refined. Combat and exploration feel great. It's similar to the first game, sure, but they do add elements to make it more interesting and to make this a more refined and improved experience, more so than the first game. Also, it's nice to be able to jump, which sounds like a weird thing to be happy about, but not having a jump button in the first game kind of seemed like an oversight in my opinion. So it's great to have them jump, even though these verticals are nothing to brag about. While the gameplay overall has been improved, it doesn't do anything that different from the previous game. Like I said, it adds some new things, sure, but the focus here is of course the story, which is pretty good. I have problems with the pacing, specifically when you play as Abby. I really like Abby as a character, even more so than Ellie by the end of the game, but that transition when you go from Ellie to her seemed to kill the momentum of the game, because you essentially restart the days that you're counting towards on Ellie's side. The transition between playing as Ellie and Abby, for me, was just not well implemented. I understand why they did it, it just killed the momentum for me. But other than that, it was a pretty good time, with a pretty engaging story. Animal Crossing, whether you like it or not, was a monumental game in 2020. It was not only a huge success, but it brought in those who are outside of the gaming realm. For that alone, it definitely deserved its place as one of the best games of 2020. I probably put more hours into Animal Crossing than any other game this year. However, it's number 5 because I dropped off after a while. And the game overall is just missing some quality of life improvements that I think could elevate the game even higher than it already was. It's a wonderful, casual game that cannot be denied. Crash 4 is a game that fans have been waiting for what feels like a decade. Toys for Bob made a Crash game that is worthy of being next to the original trilogy. Call me crazy, but I like Crash 4 way better than the original trilogy. It just clicked with me more, and I love that they added different outfits for Crash and Coco for people like me who are into that stuff. This is the smoothest Crash has ever played. The levels are creative with unique mechanics. They also incorporate mask abilities in the game that really shake things up and make each level a treat. There are also inverted versions of the levels, which will have you play through them repeatedly. The game does feel super bloated though, but it's all mostly optional if you want to complete everything. I don't suggest that you do, because that might actually kill you. However, it's there if you want it. Crash 4 is a great platformer, and probably the best Crash game yet. Ghost of Tsushima is an amazing open world game set on the real life island of, you guessed it, Tsushima. Developed by the studio who created Sly Cooper, Sucker Punch Studios does a great job at making a fantastic yet tragic event in history and designing an engaging experience all the way through. The world is huge, but not so much that it is empty. There's plenty of side quests and activities scattered throughout the island. Your character, Jin Sakai, travels through lush forests and beautiful snow in order to fight back against the Mongol invaders. All the while, Jin struggles with his morality. The story is a great setup for the game. The combat is polished and flashy, while still being grounded in realism, which is appropriate for the story the devs want to tell. I wish the game delved more into Jin's character and his struggles. For example, there could have been a system where the game has a morality meter, and depending on the player's actions, the meter will either go up or down. I don't know, something to give the game more of an identity. The seeds were there, but they didn't grow the way I wanted to, which is fine. The devs wanted to go a different direction. But I think the game just needed something else to it, another element to really make it stand out. But other than that, this game is great and really deserves to be talked about more, but maybe another day. For now, I'm putting it at number 3 because the next 2 games just resonated with me more. Even though Ghost of Tsushima and the next game can be switched depending on the mood. But for now, let's go on with the next game. Ori and the Will of the Wisp is such a special game. I genuinely have a tough time putting it down. It's such a blast to play through. Everything good about the first Ori has somehow been improved here. The art style is stunning, and there seems to be even more detail in the environment than ever before. There are also moving parts in the environment, and it's such a treat taking it all in. The animation for Ori seems to have gotten better as well, or at least I think it has. It seems better and smoother, but that might just be my eyes playing tricks on me. But the music, oh man, the music. It's just so phenomenal, and somehow better than the first game. One of my biggest complaints about the first Ori was the combat. It wasn't great, let me tell you, but in the sequel, they made the combat an actual thing, with more abilities and weapons that Ori can use. This allows players to choose their loadout for any situation. This fix was a huge improvement, so much so that Ori 2 is my favorite out of the series. There is so much more to this game that was not in the original that I haven't even mentioned here. If you haven't tried it yet, go play Ori and the Will of the Wisp. This one is a special one, even with its problems. The biggest issues I have with the game are some pacing problems throughout the playthrough, and some of the storytelling elements. There are some other improvements that can be made to the gameplay as well, that can make the overall experience better, but man, I cannot help it. This game just hooked me with its characters and world building. Cloud and his friends are just so well written, and so charismatic, most of them. Despite my critique in the story, I find it very fascinating, even though I haven't played all the way through the original. One of the best things about the game is the combat. Combat is a mix of action-oriented gameplay and tactical strategy. It would be hard to go through the game just spamming the attack button, which I love. It brings an element to combat that was missing in Final Fantasy 15. Now, before we get any further, let's stop and talk about an important part of the game that elevates the overall experience: the music. The music is the best I have ever heard in a game, and I believe that it is integral to the overall experience. There are slow tracks, bombastic tracks. There are no songs that take me out of the experience, except maybe the jukebox songs. But other than that, they are able to remix classic themes, and they are able to blend them in so beautifully together. There's just so many levels to the music that my tiny brain cannot comprehend or explain very well. But just listen to some of the tracks and you'll just be surprised how great it is. Not only that, but there is just so much to listen to in this game. I think there are up to 200 songs, and there are a lot of memorable songs, classic songs in this game. Overall, a great experience and a fantastic game with some issues, of course. But I can't help it. This game has stuck with me throughout the year, and it deserves all the recognition that it gets. Oh boy, that was a tough list to make, especially with all these great games coming out this year. Last year. I'm recording it in 2021, my bad. There are some great games from last year that I would still like to play, like Hades. I keep hearing all this talk about Hades, and I'm this close to cracking. Maybe someday, but as for today, I just still need to get through my backlog as it is. I keep doing this weird thing where I buy a lot of RPGs that I know I don't have enough time to play through, but I keep getting them. I'll save that kind of talk for therapy, but seriously, let me know down in the comments below what your favorite games were in the year 2020. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.